Whether you're thinking of purchasing a Mac or maybe you've already bought one, you want to make sure it lasts, right? You've spent all this money on a machine like this, you want to make sure it lasts. I want to share some tips and tricks that will make your MacBook last, but also cover some common mistakes that people make when they're using their Mac. So this part is primarily for the people who are maybe thinking of purchasing a MacBook, but if you have already purchased a MacBook, it might help solidify your decision in what you've bought. So right now there are 3 different variants of the latest chip that I think people should be considering. If you're considering like the Ultra, then this video might not be for you, but there is the M4, the M4 Pro, and the M4 Max. Now, the way they differ is basically just how much power you need. It's as simple as that. The M4 chip, which is what I have in this one, the base M4 chip, that is most likely going to cover, I'd say, 70 to 80% of people who are thinking of purchasing a Mac. And also, fun little fact about the MacBook Air specifically, with the M4 chip, you can get it for around $1,000. Even though the price hasn't changed of the MacBook Air that much over the last few years, it's actually gotten more expensive and now it's gotten cheaper again. But technically, this is actually one of the cheapest machines you can buy right now when you take into consideration inflation. So a MacBook like this 10 years ago, 15 years ago was $1,000. The same MacBook now, with all this latest tech, with inflation and stuff, is still $1,000. So the MacBook Air right now is an incredible deal. I can't drive that home enough. If you're thinking of buying a MacBook Air specifically, this is one of the best value machines right now. Anyway, let's go back to the chips themselves. Like I said, the M4 I think is going to cover 70 to 80% of people. The M4 Pro is for the people who need a bit more power. Maybe you're someone who's doing video editing, photo editing, you're doing stuff that's a bit more GPU intensive, then I think the M4 Pro makes sense. The M4 Max is specifically for people who are looking for pretty much the most power they can get in a laptop sort of form factor. You do have the Ultras, but like I said, if you're considering the Ultra, you know, you probably already know what you need, what you want, what you're looking for, what you expect from your machine. But the M4 Max is for people who are doing very high-end video editing, you're doing a lot of GPU work, rendering, AI work, stuff like that. Maybe you're running local AI languages on your machine, then that's probably why you'd get a Max chip. I specifically have the M4 Max chip in my MacBook Pro, primarily because I'm doing so much video editing, I'm doing a lot of photo editing, and I'm sometimes doing both at the same time because sometimes I have to include photos in my videos and stuff like that. So knowing that I can have all this stuff open, knowing that I can handle all of the stuff that I need it to handle and render out videos super quick, that's what makes the M4 Max chip worth it for me. But like I said, if you're someone who's not doing that sort of stuff and you don't need to be video editing or anything like that, you can still technically video edit on this. Like you can do basic video editing, no problem on the M4 chip. But like I said, if you're not going to be doing high-end video editing or anything like that, please do try and stick with the M4 chip. I think it just makes more sense. The unified memory is a big one. So now that Apple have updated all of their machines to have a minimum of 16 gigabytes of unified memory, I think that is just perfect. 16 gigabytes of unified memory is going to be more than enough for most people. It's going to cover most things. I have not had any issue with the 16 gigabytes of memory on this. Like I said, I did try to do all of my very heavy work on this machine instead of doing on this machine, just to see what it could do. And it basically will handle 70–80% of everything that I need it to do. When it comes to like very heavy video editing stuff, that's where I was struggling, but that's not necessarily because of the unified memory, that's because of the chip. I really do think that 16 gigabytes is the sweet spot right now. Only upgrade the unified memory if you know you're going to be using a lot more than 16 gigabytes of memory. If you know that you use a specific program or you have, I don't know, multiple programs open that are really memory intensive, then yeah, maybe consider upgrading. But I think a lot of people will be surprised at how well 16 gigabytes is enough. Like it will do everything you need it to do. Another thing to think about between the Air and the Pro is of course the fans that it has, the ventilation that it has. Because of that, this can run a lot more powerfully, a lot more hotter compared to the Air. There is no ventilation on this. There are no holes or anything apart from the back here. Like there isn't any ventilation around the machine. There's no fan to cool down the chip. So when this gets hot and you're doing something very intensive, it's going to start throttling. The MacBook Pro specifically has vents on the side and has a bigger vent in the hinge of the laptop, much sort of bigger than the Air, because obviously the machine is thicker, so it can have a bigger vent. Because of that, it can actually handle a lot heavier workloads. Another thing to think about with the Pro is that the screen is significantly better compared to the Air. You also have the extra port as an SD card and stuff like that, so that can be quite useful if you know you're going to be using those things. I think the one thing you should be avoiding as much as possible when speccing a machine like this is upgrading the SSD. If you can, try and avoid upgrading the SSD, because Apple charge way too much to upgrade the SSD on any of these machines. Like the prices they're charging, I think it's just silly. So think about what you're going to be using your machine for and whether you're going to need that SSD storage 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, whatever it might be. Because the best thing about the SSD storage is that you can easily expand it with an external hard drive. You can connect an external hard drive to any of these machines and get very fast data transfer speeds if you're using Thunderbolt 4 or Thunderbolt 5. So do avoid upgrading the SSD. I do just think it's much better if you can, depending on the type of work you do, to get an external SSD. I did actually upgrade the SSD on my machine. I upgraded it from, I think it comes with the terabyte as standard, I upgraded it to 4 terabytes. And the reason why I upgraded it was because I have a very specific use case. I'm usually working on multiple video projects at the same time. I could use an SSD, but when I'm traveling, having an SSD that I have to always sort of connect, disconnect, put it in my bag, whatever, it's just too much of a faff for me. That faff is going to sound crazy. Some people will understand it, some people won't. But that faff, that inconvenience of just having to remember to eject it, take it off, where's my video projects and stuff. When it comes to me getting a video project done, when it comes to my workflow, I sort of came to the conclusion that it was worth for me to upgrade the SSD on this to 4 terabytes. And now I can hold like months of video projects on here, no problem, and go back to them without having to find it on an external hard drive somewhere. But like I said, definitely avoid upgrading the SSD if you can. By the way, make sure to check out my latest wallpaper packs. It's a great way to support the channel. I've released a few new ones and I think they look amazing, but I'm biased. Next up is the batteries. So batteries are not meant to last forever. They will degrade, they will fail, things will happen to them. Sometimes, unfortunately, they will expand, but usually MacBooks and stuff, they're very good at that sort of thing. It won't happen. But they will degrade. Like over time, the charge of a battery, how quickly it charges, stuff like that will degrade over time. So that's something that you need to take care of. That's something that people need to take into consideration. And there's a lot of things that you can do to make your battery last. First up is using a quality charger. So I see this time and time again. I see people charging their MacBooks, their machines, with cables that aren't really designed to handle 60 watts, 100 watts of power. I see them using power bricks that just look dodgy, that you can tell haven't gone through a rigorous sort of testing process or whatever to make sure that they can deliver power efficiently, to make sure they can sort of handle the amount of power that these machines need. So try and use the chargers that come with your machine, or buy a charger, buy a cable, buy a charger from a reputable company. Apple chargers and cables are quite expensive, but I don't think a lot of people realize how much work they actually put into those things. I've seen breakdowns of their power bricks and you can see how much technology there is in a power brick. You think it's just something that charges your device, but there is technology involved in there. Other brands that you can also consider are things like Anker and Ugreen. They're very, very good. Heat is another big factor. So even though it's called a laptop, you technically shouldn't actually use it on your lap because of the heat that it produces. If you can, you should really try and use your laptop, your Mac, in an environment where it's not crazy hot. On a table that's maybe cool in some way or something. If you want to provide additional cooling, maybe you get those like mats that provide cooling. You can get one of those, but I feel like that's just overkill. It's not probably going to make that much of a difference. But like I said, I think what is important is using your laptop on a flat surface, especially a Pro. Because the Pro has vents on the sides and on the back, if you have the laptop on your lap, or you have it on a cushion, or you have it on some sort of surface that isn't flat, if you're blocking those airways, it's going to find it a lot more difficult to cool the laptop. So your processor is going to get hotter, it's going to use more power to cool the processor, your battery is going to get hotter. All these different things are going to affect the life of the battery. So try and keep your laptop as cool as possible. By default, you don't usually actually need to mess around with the battery settings within the settings menu of your Mac. Apple have done a good job of handling all of that for you. macOS will handle your battery efficiency to make sure your battery lasts as long as possible. So don't worry about having to go in there and sort of adjust things, change the charge level and things like that. macOS is pretty good at learning how you use your machine and how to use the battery. So one misconception and a big mistake that I think a lot of people make is that they think that they need to use their laptop, sort of, they plug it in, they charge it, then they take off the charger and they let it go down to like 10%, 20% or to 0, and then they charge it up again, and they keep doing that. That is a huge mistake. If you can, try and keep your laptop plugged in as much as possible. What happens is, because I use my laptop when I'm at home, usually on my desk setup, and it's always plugged in, I rarely ever unplug it unless I'm traveling. So I leave it plugged in. And what macOS does is it will charge your battery to 80%, And then once it's there, it will hold it there and it will bypass the battery entirely. So if you have it plugged in, it will get the power directly from the cable rather than sort of going through the battery and then through the cable. And that will help extend the battery life of your battery. It will reduce the cycles of your battery, because then the battery is sort of just sitting there holding its charge around 80%. It will fluctuate a little bit, and you can even see this in macOS. When you click the battery icon, it will show you power source, it will show you charging on hold, and it will even say if it's rarely used. You can see mine rarely used on battery, and there's even an option to charge it to full now. If you do plan to go out and you need it for the day and you know you're not going to be near a charger, you can charge it to 100%. I can't stress this enough. This is a big misconception, big mistake that a lot of people make. They think that leaving your MacBook plugged in is bad for the battery. It is not. It's actually better for the battery, because then you're not putting stress on the battery. You're not using it. You're just using power directly from the wall, which is also more efficient. Next up is keeping your machine clean. So this is something that really winds me up when I see it. When I see people who put stickers sort of over the vents, stickers on the screen, fine, whatever. Well, when I see stickers over the vents, or they're using their laptop in an environment where it's very dusty, dirty, whatever, that is just going to ruin your machine. It's very important to try and keep your machine as clean as possible. You don't have to take it apart and sort of clean the inside or anything. I just mean the vents around it, the screen, the keyboard, all these different things. So I would highly recommend just regularly cleaning your machine with a microfiber cloth. Microfiber cloths are so cheap. You can get them for like $1 or $2. You can get a whole pack for like $3 or $4. So I just recommend cleaning your machine regularly, making sure the vents and stuff aren't blocked by anything, because again, it will just help your machine run more efficiently. And then another mistake that I see a lot of people make is putting sort of cases and protection on their machines. Now I get it, you want to protect your machine, you don't want to have it scratch or do anything like that. But the problem with a lot of these cases, I'm not saying all of them, but I'd say most of them, they don't take into consideration the thermals of your machine. I'm sure higher end cases do, higher end protection does, but you know, if you're getting like a $10 case from Amazon, $20 case from Amazon, and you're wrapping your $1,000 machine with a $10 or $20 case, it's just not going to be good for it. Like, you're going to make it run hotter than it should. You might block the vents or whatever. Most cases are pretty good with making sure that the vents aren't blocked, but I would avoid, if you can, trying to use any hard shell cases or anything on your machine. No problem with putting your MacBook in a pouch or something so that you can put it in your backpack, or you want to carry it around with you so it's not completely bare. That's fine, because you're not actually really using the machine. But when you're using the machine and you have a case on it, a hard shell case or something, yeah, usually it's not a good idea. It will just make your laptop run hotter than it should. So those are just some of the ways to make your machine last. There isn't really that much to it. I feel like the things I've covered in this video are quite basic, but you'd be surprised at how many people don't seem to get it or understand. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter and subscribe for more.